So I'm in the Chadar Ochel at Camp Tel Yehuda. This is maybe 19, I don't know, 78 or 1980, something like that. 18 summers I worked at Camp Tel Yehuda, the national camp for the youth movement, Young Judea. There were camps across the country, maybe about five, that they still are. For younger campers, first of all, they were regional. It was campers who just came from that region of the country. And it was up to 13 years old, the campers. So what was it? I don't know, 9, 10 years old. I don't know, probably 10 years old to 13, something like that. But I was at the national camp, which first of all meant that people came from all over the United States. About 500, actually more, 500 or 600 campers per session, right? There were 2 sessions of about a month, yes, each summer. So that was unusual. And also, what was most unusual was that the age of the campers at Tel Yehuda in upstate New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey border, overlooking the Delaware, along the Delaware River. The age of the campers was 13, and still is, but its heyday was in the late 60s and 70s, early 80s. The age of the campers was 13 to 18-year-olds, which really, is unusual and changes the whole, it's really, it was magic in those years. And so there I am. I'm in the Chadarocha. Here I'm not in I'm not in 1980 or 1978 or whatever. And I'm in Jerusalem, and this is my, apartment, and we're in the so-called salon. And most of this is my artwork, but also from some of my students. And here I'm sitting at my desk, and yes, I don't know, it's very dark now here. It's late at night. Maybe I can turn up the lights a little bit. Maybe that helps. There's a lot of books, of course, with photos of some of the Jewish thinkers and teachers who I've studied with personally, or I know through their books. Yes. And so Tel Yehuda. There's a picture of me in the 70s. Can you see this? It's very dark. Here I am dancing with Tirza Hodis. Used to come from Israel each summer to. She was one of the founders of modern Israeli dance. And here we're going into the kitchen. Which when you come into the apartment, it's the first. You first come into the kitchen. Some plants, and now it's dark, so these windows overlook orange, or tiled roofs. It's very beautiful, but so you can see it's dark. But I've covered the windows with pictures, drawings, and mostly my drawings and the like. And where's the picture of Tel Yehuda that I drew years ago? This is just a drawing I made from the bed, looking across camp at the apple trees. I don't know if you can see that. You can see the apple trees, and across the way, the mountain with the mountains on the other side of the Delaware. And you can see the sun is, the sky, I don't know if you can see, is starting to be a little bit pink. I don't know if you can see that. for a little bit before sunset. And, so I'll just put that here for now. And so I'm there in the Chadar Ochel, with about 300 Chanichim campers and staff. And somebody, comes up to me, who was the Marrakez. At that point, I was the educational director. Then after that, I was the scholar in residence, so-called. And then before that, I was the Marrakez. In the Ramah camps, it's called the Rosh Eda, of the different programs, groups at camp. And one of the Marrakzim comes up to me, who was leading a group of about 50 15-year-olds approximately, and comes up to me and says, after lunch, well, that was 15, 20 minutes, would you lead a discussion, give a sikha, we called it, give a sikha. Very often it was more a lecture than, but for me, and it was always text study, and that caught on at camp with other teachers, the educators as well. Text study together with discussion and all kinds of, role playing and various ways of methods of conveying, of inviting engagement. And so the Marrakez asked me, would you lead a discussion, give a sikha on Kedushat HaAretz, the holiness of the land of Israel. I'm just going to go in the kitchen and just get something to drink for my throat. It's very dry. So back in the kitchen and just so there I am sitting at the so-called head table. So I take out my pen and excuse me. So I take out my pen and I take a napkin and I write on the page. I don't write 15-year-olds. I don't start thinking about who it is that I'm going to, so-called try to teach. I call it sharing something of my, Jewish humanity, my American-Israeli, Jewish humanity. So I don't write down, I don't start thinking about who are the students, who am I inviting to join me in exploring, and I'm now plugging in the computer again, the laptop, and neither do I start jotting down on the napkin a method of, how might I teach, how might I share something about Kedushat HaAretz? Will it be through a role play, or will it be through, what kind of texts might I share? I don't start with any of that. I start with, do I know something about, what do I know about Kedushat HaAretz, the holiness of the land of Israel, this concept experience, this idea experience? What do I know anything that's rich, that's nuanced, has depth, that's compelling? Not yet. I'm not thinking right now for others or for 15-year-olds. No. First, I'm thinking for me. For me. I mean, what is Kedushat HaAretz? Generally, we're thinking and feeling and acting, living on generalities, by generalities. We don't think specific and feel and live, act, and based on something more specific, which the Talmud is all about. Every page of Talmud is demanding that these general ideas and feelings that we then act upon, etc., that we get more specific about what do we mean, what is it really all about, what does it look like in this situation or another, or how is it different from another feeling or idea or something that might be similar. So the first thing is, do we have anything rich to share? This is what I call the philosophy of the subject, or the interpretation of the subject, or our take on the so-called subject. I say so-called, as I've shared with you, because education is all about trying to transform what is only a subject to our students presently, to transform it into a reality, into Torah, into something which is compelling and commanding, rich, provocative of thought, engaging. Of course, Torah, the tough, is not part of the root. Yes, it's we often add a tough before words, teshuvah, tnuah, truma, in order to make it into a noun. The word Torah is lahorot, or even liarot, to shoot an arrow, or yes, in biblical terms, to direct an arrow towards a target. And lahorot, Torah, is related, is a related root, to show. So Torah means direction, directing, yes, pointing towards something. So we want to conjure up a subject as not being a subject, but as Torah. I mean, if we teach math, it's the same with not only Jewish education. Teaching mathematics. If I'm teaching Shakespeare, right now students think Shakespeare is a subject you have to require it at school. Boring. But if I'm a better than good Shakespeare teacher of Shakespeare. I mean, I'm not teaching Shakespeare, I'm teaching people Shakespeare. I'm not teaching Bible, I'm teaching people Bible. I hope that it has something to contribute to expanding the human spirit, my students' spirits. So, again, I aspire to transform Shakespeare into not just one of the subjects at school you have to take, but into engaging, compelling, exciting, wondrous world of ideas, experiences, events that we can recognize in our own lives, issues that we grapple with, that provoke our thought, that engage us, that we lose sleep over, that we're drawn to, that we can come to love like a best friend. So again, I'm back at the Chadar Ochel at Tel Yehuda, and I'm with my pen and napkin, and I've got 15, 20 minutes before, I'm supposed to share with a group of some, 40, 50, 15-year-olds under an apple tree. One of those apple trees I share with you a drawing of. So again, the first stage is I don't think about who I'm teaching or how I might teach it, but what am I going to teach? But the way I do it is I don't think about what am I going to teach. I think about lilmod ulalmed. First, I'm teaching myself. I'm learning myself. What is Kedushat HaAretz? And even if I think I know, even if I taught it recently or something, I want to, and especially if I taught it a year or more ago, so-called teaching. I call it sharing of my humanity, sharing of what I found engaging and finding engaging in this world, this reality, the so-called subject. So I've got my pen and napkin, and as I'm saying, I'm at the head table. There's the noise, the din of 350 people eating, and the vast majority of whom are 13 to 18-year-olds, and perhaps at this point singing Israeli songs, and so there I am, and so I write down Kedushat HaAretz, then I write down Kedusha, the holy, sacred, kadosh. That's, yes, Kedushat HaAretz, the sacredness of the land, the holiness of the land of Israel, is one instance of holiness. So then I jot down, all right, well, what about Kedushat HaZman? Maybe that'll help me. There's also holiness of holidays, holy days. So then what I do is, I remember, I had my napkin. I'm going to use a piece of paper right now. But, I'll use my little blackboard here, but we'll do this. And I remember, I don't know if you can see this, if I can position it. And I drew a line. Yes, Kedushat HaZman. Yeah. Kadosh, yeah, or Kedushat, if it's Smichut. In this case, I'm going to start with Hazman. I felt that might be more concrete for me. I might be able to figure out something about that. Yeah. Holiness of time. What is it? So I remember I drew this line, and then I said, well, I mean, Shabbat or Passover, in other words, if you don't have sacredness of time, then all times, days are the same. Well, here it goes up, but I just meant, it's the same. But if there's a sacred time, boom, right, yeah, it sticks out. It's prominent. It's different. And then I think, well, what about in our personal lives? In my personal life, is all time the same? No, it's not. My wedding anniversary. Well, I've married people, and I myself am married to all kinds of ideas and community, but I haven't, married one significant other, as we call it, myself. That I haven't experienced yet, anyway. But people who have the anniversary, but I have anniversary. I know anniversaries in my life, this or that event. The first time I was at Tell You Who, to this magical place, or etc. There are these days, there are these times, which are different for us. And then there's groups of people, as a family, or as a couple, or as a community, or as a nation, as a people. Kedushat HaZman. So Kadosh has something to do now. So I was on to something a little bit there, And then I ran to my room to check some of the books that I had brought to camp, the 25 or 30, books that I brought to camp. And one of them, I hadn't really read it closely at all. I just had glanced at it. And I had it at home for some time. I had read closely some of the other writing of Mircea Eliade. I'm going over to the books here, and I think it's over here somewhere. Yep. Mircea Eliade, The Sacred and the Profane, The Nature of Religion. Trying to position this. Can you see it? The significance of religious myth, symbolism, and ritual within life and culture. And so I started to glance there. And indeed, he talks about again, this is not about the sacred and the profane in Judaism, but in the ancient Near East, and including biblical Israel and and a little bit later Judaism. Mainly, it's ancient Near Eastern, comparative, so-called comparative religion. And he also emphasizes the difference, or separateness. Then we start thinking about it in Judaism. Kedusha has to do with sacred. I'm sorry, of course, but that's the problem. We don't know, what does it mean in English, even. I mean, yes, holy or sacred. So this is what we're trying to figure out, to deepen, to clarify and complicate, and see if there's something rich there. So when we think about that, we think of is it to make sacred? It's very much a verb form kind of thing, even when it's not in a verb form. To consecrate, to make sacred, is to that it will become prominent, significant, not just the same as everything else in the case of time. In the case of space, place, the land of Israel is, or a mezuzah, a mezuzah is saying to us, and actually Eliad mentioned it. Is let's see, map again. It's very dark. Or on the door to my apartment. I don't know. It's very dark there, but I want to be quiet though, because it's late now. Marks a passage from space, place, which is just the norm, or just what it is. And then I come into a space that the mezuzah marks that. I come into a space that is special, that carries a significance, the root of the word significant sign. It signals something that is different and special. I come in there and I feel differently, and then of course it helps if I make the whole thing into kind of a theater, where the whole place here is a kind of art installation or something. Yes. Now in the Japanese garden, people wash their feet when they first come in, the traditional Japanese garden. Again, not because they're dirty. I mean, it's just like you wash your hands, netilat yadayim. You have to live. Netilat yadayim is not because your hand. If somebody says, okay, here we're going to break bread together, and so let's, those that want to, those who are accustomed to netilat yadayim. Somebody won't say, oh, well, I washed my hands already, they're clean. No, it's not about physically washing. Here it isn't water physically cleaning. It's the symbolism of water that is clarifying my mind that I'm about to go to the table, and it's not just a regular table. They have, again, regular table. I could draw, all tables, and I can draw a line. It's not just the same as all tables. This is going to be different because it's going to be sacred table, potentially. I mean, that's the aim. That's what we aspire. It's going to be like an altar. And we won't experience it like. We'll experience it not as even. It will be the altar in the Beit HaMikdash. Or before there was a Beit HaMikdash, people had their own altars, the Mizbeach, in the area, or even in their, on their land, in their home. and they would make up offerings. Then it became only in the center, Shiloh, and then, especially when there was Beit HaMikdash. So the table becomes potentially sacred, which is again separate, different, a sign, a signal for something that transcends just the sameness of everything else. And so we wash the hands, and that's why we don't talk in between Netilat Yadayim, Litol Yadayim, to lift up the hands in prayer, to expand ourselves, and so to look a little bit beyond, a little bit upward, a little bit. It could be sideways, but the metaphor is upward. Something a little bit beyond our own selves. We're only going up to here. Usually, I don't know, we're going up, even not up to there. So that's why we don't talk in between Netzilat Yadayim and saying the Motzi, because the washing of the hands is to clarify the mind, to purify the mind, to say, oh, I'm about to go, toward an act which is potentially sacred, is to make sacred this table and this meal with these people. Sometimes it can be when I'm alone, but we're never totally alone. But and now, of course, if there's no salt on the table, there's symbolism of salt. We've got enough problems right now. We won't explore. I won't suggest anything about that symbolism, which is discussed in the Talmud, of course. But why the salt? But if the salt isn't on the table, or if somebody, we don't know yet, did they wash? Did he or she wash? Again, wash it not, but to do Netilat Yadayim is what we call. Then, and if somehow it can't be indicated by motioning, but you don't even have to try. You can say, the salt. We need the salt. Would you please bring salt here? Or so because that wouldn't break the bridging from the preparation of the Netilat Yadayim to saying the Motzi at the table and the meal, because it's connected to the table and the meal and Netilat Yadayim. So, but okay, so all right, I'm on to something, I think. Now I have 4 or 5 minutes, 7 minutes before I have to give a discussion to share with this group of young people about this. So I quickly looked through a couple of the books that I brought, Maimonides, passages from the Mishnah Torah, and other books to find passages about the land of Israel, which I have, but now I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something about the difference, how it suggests something different from other places, and what is some of those differences, how we feel, we experience something different when we're in the land of Israel, and then in Jerusalem, and even more, and then at the site of Beit HaMikdash, even more, etc. Though those also symbolize something. So just to be in Israel or Jerusalem or Beit HaMikdash, you can end up with lousy values, with lousy religious so-called and ethical so-called experience at those places that actually denigrates the divine image of human beings in different ways. So that, yes, then one has to ask what is the difference? That a difference by itself is not enough. Harold Bloom from the Yale English Department, Comparative Literature Department, says that we're looking for a difference that can make a difference. I love that. It's not just difference in itself isn't enough. Separateness in itself isn't enough. But what is that separateness really about? What is the difference really about? But all right, so I only have a few minutes. I choose some of these passages, yes. At that time, there was no, it was before word processing, I remember that. It was the beginning of it, so I grabbed some of the books and I ran to the, office and photocopied, a few and quickly, because I grabbed some magic markers and poster boards and, ran across the lawn and, there was Lori Ruskins and she was in her car and, as I said, can you drive me along the path, the road, which was a dirt road of that part of camp, because I'm really, even the minutes, or I have to get to the other side of camp, and, so I get into, and we get across there, and at the apple tree, I walk over to the Marquez. I said, look, just do, you're going to introduce me or something in some way. Don't say, please, what the subject, the so-called, what the subject is. Don't give the title, Kedushat HaAretz. I mean, first of all, that'll be very boring. Everybody will fall asleep right away. But also because I want to reach my goal by way of detour. John Dewey in Philosopher of Education and others, actually, the Kotzker Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Kotz, the great Hasidic master, he also talks about that, to arrive at the goal by way of detour, very often in education, not directly. And so there I am, and Marquez says a few words about me or whatever. And I start like this right away. I'm thinking about something myself lately, and I want to share it with you by asking you, do we feel the same? I mean, do you feel the same in all places? Do we feel the same in all places? Are all places the same to us? The way we feel about them. Oh no, a few people said. I said, and what? You have examples? How does that work? There's this place in New Hampshire that my family would go to every year, and that's a special place, for us, because we go there every year, and we do stuff together, and then I get older every year, and but I have the memories. So I said, look, let's break up into small groups, and here's some poster boards. I've got some magic markers here, and I start to give them out, and let's think of some more examples of places where we feel different. And then why? So, yes. Here, Jackie just mentioned memories, I guess, or there was a place where some stuff happened with family. So there's a couple of ideas about why you felt special about this place in New Hampshire. And then we'll come together after 15 minutes or so, and we'll talk about it. So that's what we did, and then we came together, and each group shared a little bit. I remember one group, somebody said that my room, I feel, is special. I feel different in my room, and one of the reasons is because I put up a little sign, and nobody is allowed in my room, especially my younger brothers and sisters. But really, even my parents, they're supposed to have, my permission. So, I fix it up the way I want it, and it's my own space. I can do, and I listen to the music I want, and I can have it, so I can be myself there. All right, so we talk about that, and then I say, well, I don't know that it's exactly the same. as the way the Jewish people have felt about the land of Israel. That it's what we call, in our Jewish tradition, but also in our other human traditions, called sacred in English, in Hebrew, kadosh, Kedushat HaAretz, and then I take the back of one of the poster boards, I think it was, or whatever, in the poster board, and I write Kedushat HaAretz. I said we also have Kedushat HaZman, a different time. We don't feel the same in all times. There's birthdays and anniversaries, and the first time that I was, my first kiss, or my first time at Tel Yehuda, or how many, and if you remember the exact day, even, so if you, then time also is not the same. It's special and it's different, and we have reasons why, and what it conjures up, what it stands for us. And so I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I think it's very similar, even for some of the reasons that we mentioned. Let's take a look at a few. All right, now I have like 15 minutes left or something, but so it took most of the time to lead up to this, but that's okay. I mean, sometimes you want to devote less time and get to it. But we look at some of the texts, and yes, the Jewish people felt, like every people feels, every nation, that yes, they want to be able to, like you said about your room, that you can be yourself. Sometimes you can't really be yourself unless you, yes, can set up your room the way you want. And then if there are others that want to set up their room differently, or this, so you need your own room. You also need a place where you can visit other people's rooms. And also maybe a place where you build it, you set it up together with other people. That's the living room, or the common room, or the Chadar Ochel or something is different from your own bunk, the tzrif, and then your own little corner in the tzrif. Put up a few things on the wall over your bed or whatever. So you can see here, perhaps, yes, that I begin with my own ideas. Then I think about who it is that I'm going to teach, I want to share. And then I think, is there something, but when I think of what is dear to them at their age, relationships are very important for 15-year-olds. I mean, they are for us too, but maybe in even more intense ways. And family, but also but also being apart from family and developing. We always talk about family education in Judaism more, for a couple of decades now. But that isn't always the case. It doesn't always work. It isn't always about that for certain age groups, adolescents. Very often they want to be separate from their parents. They're embarrassed of their parents, or they don't want to be with them, or they want to set out on their own. And that's one of the reasons youth movements can be, so-called youth subculture, can be very compelling. All right, I want to end this video, this sharing with you. But I'm going to bring, tomorrow I hope to make another video with a couple more examples of teaching Jonah, how I prepared for that, teaching chapter 1 of Joshua, and how, again, I go through the same stages in order to plan, to design a piece of curriculum, whether it's one meeting or 2 or 3 or 30. Thanks for watching, and let me know in our forum for sharing our ideas and responses to what I share and what one another shares there. And let me know what you think.